25th episode of CloudFocus Weekly for the last week, 2010. This episode is titled 2011 Cloud Predictions. CloudFocus Weekly is sponsored by Arkus, your cloud computing experts, and I'm your host for the last time in 2010. And joining me for the last time in 2010, my co-host, Justin Elstein. Justin, how you doing?
Doing great. Getting ready for the new year. It's coming up in a day or two.
It's New Year's Eve is tomorrow.
We're sitting here in Times Square right now, getting ready for the ball drop.
It is a little insane out there.
Oh, the one thing good, and people in the Northeast know that there was a huge snowstorm over the last week or weekend. Times Square, there's no snow. It's as if it never snowed in Times Square.
They've been working.
They put a dome over Times Square. There's no snow. Nothing. Lots of people, no snow.
Speaking of no snow, we have an agenda.
Oh, we do.
It has no snow in it.
No snow. This is a snow-free podcast.
So we're going to talk about, I posted a predictions blog post, the first of hopefully many years to come of posting my 2011 cloud predictions. Talk about that. Talk about the 14 cloud computing trends of the new year from ReadWriteCloud. So they took on my trends and did that.
Clearly.
Salesforce.com released the new community sites. In customer resources, they have ideas, answers. We'll talk about that. Google Apps makes some news with a new API, and we have a cloud fail that we'll wrap it up with, and then we'll do our CloudFocus app pick of the week, which I will come up with between now and that time.
Alrighty.
So let's start where all things good are starting. So I wrote a podcast that will be up by the time of this podcast is up. I read a blog post. I did that again. 5+ cloud computing predictions for 2011.
Yep.
And I'm going to go over them quickly.
Go for it.
And you can tell me, well, actually, we'll leave the blog post for people to read. Tell me which one you liked the most or you think is the most likely to happen.
The most likely to happen, I think, is your number 5. Your 5th, which maybe you were saving the best for last, death of the disk.
Yep.
Which is essentially to say no more software on disks. You're going to be able to download or go to an app marketplace, something like the Apple marketplace that they're launching, or the App Exchange, or the Google App Marketplace, and just install things, whether it's on your desktop OS or a cloud OS or the Chrome OS, something that probably is a long time in the making, where you say people will just be shipping serial numbers. And I can remember back in the day getting those AOL discs in the mail, which is, think back, that is so crazy to think about. You're getting a disk to install a piece of software on your computer so that you can access the internet. It's just a pretty odd, just looking back over the 15-year arc of the internet and seeing that, very odd. But I think that's I think you hit a bunch of them, obviously, but I think that's the one that's most likely to completely be absolutely true.
And then I threw in my last one, which I'm going to talk about because it's kind of fun to talk about, which is my long shot.
This is a real long shot.
But I actually did it as a joke, and then I thought, you know what? I'm going to try to see if I can make it make sense. And I thought I made it make sense because there's some theories of why they could do this. So I predict that in 2011, Apple will buy Salesforce.com. It's basically two of my favorite companies joining hands together forever.
You know this is not happening.
It's going to happen. I'm predicting it.
Well, then it must happen.
Then it will happen. And so again, I thought of it more as a joke, and then I started putting the pieces together. I'm like, okay, so what would Apple gain out of this? Apple would gain Salesforce's sales team, which Salesforce, most companies, we talk about this a lot, most companies buy other companies not for their technology, but for their people. Salesforce has an incredible sales network and sales architecture to sell to enterprises. That's what they do. That's what Apple doesn't do very well. They don't sell to enterprise. I've actually met the guy who was our account on when we worked at the big company there, and I met our rep, and he was like, "Yeah, we're not doing anything with you." It's one of the biggest companies on the planet, and the Apple rep for us was saying, "Yeah, we can't get anything done in there." So it just, that just sort of that's not their thing. Salesforce's thing is selling, and they make an app and the cloud platform, blah blah blah, but they actually have an incredible sales network around, and they've divided up in the different, and they're in the enterprises, talking to the enterprises. So I think Apple would benefit from that. The second one was using some of the patents that Salesforce has, and I think I remember the number was like 50-something patents, something like that. Mark Benioff said it in one of these cloud talks. about their virtualization, about their their infrastructure, how they build out, how they do scaling, all of that in their pods, their skinny table schema, which is how they do the database schema. It's all pretty impressive stuff, and there's a lot of patents that they have. So could Apple, who is purportedly getting into the cloud, more and more cloud, they have two, I think, MobileMe, which is their cloud mail syncing, whatever, which has never been a great success, although I love it, but still not a great success. And then there's this...
Because they charge too much for it. For what it is, they charge a bit much.
I think its value isn't that... It's not the price. It's the price of not thinking about it. I paid for it because I don't want to think about it.
Yeah, but it's something that other services can provide for free.
It's your time. What is your time worth? And if you were to go put together...
It's like the premium, like, you have a @me address. That's premium.
Well, the me is not.
You have a syncing mechanism.
It's syncing between
things,
multiple devices.
Although
it's iDisk.
I do have like 12 Jason Atwoods in my address book.
That's very odd. So I was thinking that again, Apple's getting into this new big North Carolina data center, huge puppy.
They bought that music service, Lala, was it? So
that allows you to store not store, but it basically reads your iTunes catalog and says, okay, you own I'm trying to think of a
Jason
song.
owns the entire Britney Spears catalog.
There you go. Jason owns the entire Britney Spears catalog. It sees that. It then says, Jason is now authorized in Lala to play that at any time from any device. So then if on my device, any device I can log in on the web, I can log in by my iPad, iPhone, or whatever, and just go, play me, Hit Me Baby One More Time. And it would say, sure, you have authorization for it because I've scanned your catalog. I know. So it's basically putting your catalog in the cloud, but it's not doing what I think people think it is, which is uploading your entire cloud. It's just saying you own it, you have access to it, you can get to it from anywhere. It's a streaming service. I don't know if that's what it is, but could Salesforce technologies for scalability and pod structure and virtualization and skinny tables, could that help Apple? Sure. And then the last one was sort of a throw out to Chatter, which is, Chatter's getting a lot of press and is making headway into enterprises again. Apple has tried its shot at social networking with Ping, which it's on my social networking list of like 1 through 10. It's right above MySpace, which I never go to. So like Ping, I go to once in a while just to see, and I see that you bought something, or a friend of ours, he buys things. I'm like, oh, look at that, he bought something. Or my wife, I see she bought, the new Glee soundtrack, but whatever. So that was my predictions. Read them at blog.arkusinc.com, and let's talk about someone else's predictions.
Sure. So moving right along, ReadWriteCloud, a pretty good cloud blog, had 14 cloud computing predictions for 2011 from Chirag Mehta and R. Ray Wang. So this is on readwriteweb.com/cloud. You'll find it. So they had 14 predictions. I don't think it's worth going through all 14 because you all can go look at them on your own. But, maybe we pick out one or two of our favorites. What do you think?
Sure. I'm going to pick out one I agree with and one I don't.
Good idea. Go for it.
So I'm just trying to look at the ones that I think...
Would you like me to go first?
Why don't you go first?
All right.
Well, no, I have one. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, the one I agree with is because it's similar to mine, which is the death of the disk. App stores will be prominent channel for application deployment. So what I said was the death of the disk. They're saying app store. I agree with that one. I guess the one that I disagree with is number 2, which is private clouds will serve as a stepping stone to public clouds. I don't agree with that. I think the people who are building, because again, one of my predictions was an anti-private cloud thing. One of my, the way I feel is that people who are building private clouds at this point are calling them private clouds or into the movement or using that terminology, are using it as a way to protect their own infrastructure and using it as a way of building out their own. They don't trust the public cloud. So I don't see that as a stepping stone, because if you're going to invest that kind of money in architecture to build your own private cloud, you're not going to go, oh yeah, we've just dumped $2.2 million in this data center to do my virtualization that I'm using at 1%. You know what? We should use Salesforce. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. So I disagree with that one. What about you?
So mine are, the one I disagree with is very similar. So I'll start there with the public cloud adoption will be temporarily reduced by concerns about cybersecurity, and private clouds will be kept for security and backups. I just don't feel as if I don't feel like either of those statements are true. I think if anything, the security of public clouds is getting better and better as more people and more large enterprises come onto the public clouds. And I don't see a reason why anyone would buy into using a public cloud and then keep their own private cloud as a term, private cloud, for backup and security reasons. Like, you might have, your own central database of sorts that sits behind the public cloud and has a huge data store. But to call it a private cloud for backup and security is sort of, you're not going to have a full version of this public cloud application running on a private cloud. That's just ridiculous.
We've heard
maybe
of
the database, but not, maybe the data for backup, but not the app itself. You're not gonna do that. I don't think that's true. And the thing that I do believe in, or I do agree with, is transition from best-of-breed purpose-built applications to cloud megastacks will occur. So, the move from software as a service to platform as a service and development as a service will occur, and I think that that's already occurring, and companies will stop thinking about their application being delivered as a service and start building out the ability to build extensions and actual different custom apps on their service or on their platform.
So moving from SaaS to PaaS, DaaS, and applications as a service. Sorry, just had to do the joke.
Can't say that one.
Can't say that
We're
one.
not explicit.
We are not. Agreed. That's a pretty good. I mean, it's also like predicting that it's going to be cold in the winter, and I think that probably
that's relative. It depends where you live.
It's going to be warmer in the summer. As well as predicting the sun will come up and then might go down the next day. I don't know if that's like. I think with predictions, the point of the fun of predictions is not saying sort of where the trend is going. It's sort of saying what outlandish thing you think is going to happen. Right? Because I could predict that Apple stock's going to go up next year. They're going to produce a new iPhone. They'll probably have an update to the iPad. They will make a lot of money. These are all predictions.
Good predictions.
Google will build a new product in labs and kill off another new product that they had in labs.
Like Google Wave?
Oh, I got to bring it up.
It's the last one. You got to bring it up.
Yeah, the last one of 2000. Should we say that that's the last time we talk about it in 2010 or forever? No more Google Wave 2011.
Absolutely not.
Forget it. All right, so we got something else. Salesforce released their new community sites. So we talked about last week. I think it was last week. Talked about their new help center, which looks like there's now a new community site that
this one hit me by surprise, just like the new help hit me by surprise. The other day, I every week or two, I like to go into the ideas and answers community and vote on some ideas, or maybe I have an idea of my own, and I always like to go to the answers community and see if I can lend a helping hand and answer some questions. So I go to my ideas.salesforce.com, and it redirects me to success.salesforce.com.
Okay.
So all of a sudden I have this new page that has a ask your question or post your idea. It sort of melds the two together. There's a little portlet or pane within the site that has little sub tabs, so you can flip between new questions, new ideas, and new blog posts. So they've sort of melded those three pieces of the community together. It's a really nice interface. It's a well done interface. It's easy to ask a question. It has like an open text box. Just ask a question, post it. I will say though, it still has these quirks. It still has the login doesn't work, or like, you think you're logged in but you're not, and then you go to hit vote and you get redirected to a login screen, and then you log in, you land back on the idea that you wanted to vote for, you hit vote again and it asks you to log in again. Like, still some really weird, quirky login issues I know you had an issue this morning with trying to upload an image to an idea.
I'll talk about my idea because I want everybody to go vote on it.
Yeah, tell us about your idea.
It's called Move the Back to List link, which if you're on a view, I think it's back to view or back to list. They call it the list. But it's in. So if you build a list and then you go to an object, there's always a back to, and then it tells you the name of the list that you're on, which is great. It's a great functionality to bounce back before the working lists and then actually doing something in an object. When Chatter came along, they placed it, I think without even thinking about it very much, they replaced the Chatter feed above this link. So now when I jump to, if I have my Chatter feed expanded and I jump to it, that link back to the list is all the way at the bottom of the Chatter feed. If I close Chatter, it goes to the top, and then I can go back and forth. But it seems like the most simple thing just to pick it up and move it above Chatter, so then it's always in a consistent place. And as we know for UI design and stuff, when links and navigation are in consistent physical locations, they become easier because your mouse and your eye can go to the same place because you know that the home tab is always the tab up here, or the search is always here. Having a link that is sort of a navigational link change based on whether you have Chatter expanded or contracted, I think it's not a great UI. So I put it up there. I actually built a picture of where it is and where it should be. I mean, said current and whatever. And tried to upload it. I tried to upload it in Safari. I tried to upload it in Chrome, and I tried to upload it in Firefox, and none of them worked.
Wow.
So
the other thing that that's interesting that didn't work. So what is it called again? The exact title of your idea, so people could go vote for it.
Let me look. It's called Move Back to List Above Chatter on Objects.
There you go. Go vote for that.
Go vote for that.
The other thing
I tweeted it too.
On this page that's sort of glaringly not here is a universal search box. So when you land on the success.salesforce.com page, there's no search box. You have to click to like answers or ideas, and then you get to search across. You should be able to just search across all those things from the home page of the community. I think that's a big miss, but hopefully someone's listening to this who could take some action on it and make some changes. Come on. Otherwise, I mean, it's a new look, new feel for the community for 2011, and I'm sure that they'll get it right over time.
Good stuff. I didn't have a ton of time to look at it. It does look like a new look and feel. It doesn't look hugely different to me. I did notice that when I jump between ideas and answers, I now do remain logged in.
That's good.
So
that was a big pain point for me.
But again, I couldn't log in with Firefox this morning. It was really bouncing out.
Yeah, I could not log in with either Safari or Chrome. So work on those login issues.
Chrome supports something that they gotta.
Well, in the upcoming Spring 11 release, Chrome will be fully supported by Salesforce.com.
Nice.
That is in the Ideas Exchange, marked as coming in next release.
Alrighty. Next up on the
agenda is the Google Apps Marketplace getting a billing API so that people can start charging for their applications on the marketplace. So a couple of apps are already using this. SlideRocket, GQs, just to name a few. They're accepting customer transactions using the API, which is essentially powered by Google Checkout.
That's great.
Yeah. So
do you use Google Checkout?
I do use Google Checkout. I have a Google Checkout account. I have my credit card associated with it. When I see that, when I'm on a website that can accept checkout or PayPal, I am more inclined to use PayPal, just because I think I've had it longer. But I'm also more inclined to buy the thing. So, like, if I'm on a website and they accept one of those two forms of payment, I'm more likely to purchase it right then and there, because it's easier than going to my wallet and finding my credit card.
Absolutely. So PayPal versus Google Checkout, do you have a preference? If you see both buttons?
Oh, I usually hit PayPal.
Okay, so you'll hit PayPal over Google Checkout.
Yeah.
So I'll tell you, the one thing I like about, I see both. I think the problem with both for me is I have accounts, multiple accounts under multiple. So although I only have one Google Checkout account, I have multiple PayPal accounts. So it kind of comes down to, I think about it, I see PayPal and I was like, oh, it's $37. Oh, I know I have $40 that I got from an eBay sale that's sitting in my PayPal. Let me just pay with that. Google Checkout, I think I like because it is connected to a lot of different credit cards, and it's more. I think of PayPal as sort of that. I guess the difference is I think of PayPal as having sort of like a cash account, and there's a little cash in there. I'll pay for it. I think of Google Checkout as I know I can direct it to a card. It's also much easier, I think, Google Checkout. I just think when you click the button, it's sign in, go. As opposed to PayPal, feels like there's a couple more layers in there. So I always feel like PayPal is the, or Google Checkout's the easier one to use. But interesting that you...
Yep. Yeah, I do prefer PayPal. But anyway, back to the article. Essentially, the app marketplace is now allowing for developers to charge for their service. And Google will be handling all the billing and will take 20% cut of all the sales, as opposed to the way Apple does it, which they take 30% for an iPhone app or a iPad app. So not bad for handling all that stuff for you. This should also be noted that it's going to be used as part of the Chrome OS store. So the same technology will be used there as well, and they have some decent features. So you can have per seat pricing or site-wide licensing, or a mix of the two. You can have people pay on a fixed monthly or yearly billing plan, and you can also do a free trial, which is built into it. There are some limitations that have been noted. There are limitations with pay-as-you-go payments. There are limitations with invoicing. So right now, the only thing that people can pay with are a credit card through Google Checkout. And essentially, it's, you can't bill like a certain group of users versus another group of users. It's sort of a site-wide billing for the entire app. But otherwise, it's getting there. It's definitely getting to a point where people can actually sell their products on the Google App Marketplace. This is still in its infancy, so I imagine this is a good first step towards getting people to be able to make a profit on some of these Google integrated apps.
The paradigm I think that's interesting with Google is that there's so much free stuff that unlike the Apple Store, when you're buying things for your iPad or your iPhone or whatever, you're purchasing one-off things. It's an individual purchase. Will this be able to handle? Will the enterprises take this in and think and still go to the Google Marketplace and say, yes, I'm willing to pay for those? We talked about this last time about trust and about who the company is behind and all that. Obviously, smaller companies will adopt quicker. I just don't think that the bigger enterprises are ready to go into this type of, this kind of app store and to purchase these things. So where is this market? As opposed to the app stores for the iPhone, iPad, and the new Mac OS app store, the downloading is for the individual, which I think is much able. One person says, I only need one app, that's all I need, I'm going to click on it, it's my purchase. This is not merely meant for the one individual, it's meant for businesses and enterprises. Are they willing to adopt this model yet? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it might open up also places where, Justin Edelstein has a Google Checkout account and just decides to buy some stuff in his Google account. I don't know. Maybe they can prevent that. I haven't looked too far in.
The other thing that occurs to me is that there was an article about an interview with the guy who the company that did Angry Birds, which I know you're a big fan of.
Love Angry Birds.
So Angry Birds, for those who don't know, is a application or game for the iPad, iPhone, and Android platforms.
Great. Very addictive.
It's basically you take birds and you throw them at a bunch of pigs.
Using a slingshot. You fling them at pigs and break wooden boxes and glass and stuff.
It's become phenomenal. I mean, it's a phenomenon all across. I mean, there's articles, there's time of articles. It's incredible. Anyway, the interview with one of the developers or owners of the company, they are saying, how is it going? How's the success? It's it started slow and then blew up, and it's been the number one app for for a long time, longer than any other app. It's sold, just tons. They made tons of money on it.
I wasted lots of time on my flight back from Dreamforce playing Angry Birds on my iPad.
Yes, you did. What he said was, how's the Android marketplace going? And he said, it's a mess. It's a mess. And Apple's done it right, and Android, which is Google, the Google Android marketplace is not good, and and developers are not going to go to it yet because it's just not ready for prime time. So what I would say about this is, Google has a way of building something, but maybe never doing it with the spit and polish that other companies do. Is this going to be that one of those things where it's cool, but is it really kind of done well? So anyway, my thoughts on it, and then we got some cloud fail.
A cloud fail. We're going to end the podcast with a cloud fail, just to show that, we're objective in our thinking about the cloud.
Yes.
So we will stick it to Microsoft, though, when we have a chance.
A little bit.
So Microsoft...
I don't know where that comes from other than...
whatever. Microsoft's BPOS, or Business Productivity Online Suite.
Awesome name,
BPOS. Had a data leak
problem. Didn't
problem.
they have a new album last year? BPOS? King of the Pause?
King of the Pause.
Awesome.
So they exposed clients' information. So for those that don't know, because there are likely a bunch of you that aren't aware, Microsoft does have a competitor to the Google Apps Premier Suite, and it's called Microsoft BPOS. It's an online service. It essentially has the ability to do SharePoint and Exchange in the cloud, as well as some unified communication services and syncing of Office documents using the SharePoint service. Mm-hmm. So it's a pretty robust offering for those people or those companies that are already ingrained in using Outlook and Exchange and Office. It allows you to have those full features of those products and have them hosted in the cloud. Now, this is their true cloud offering as opposed to like a hosted Exchange. But they did have an issue where they exposed client data to other clients. So there was a configuration issue with the offline address book function. So the address book that sits in your Outlook that would be syncing down from the cloud, and information that sat within those address books could be inadvertently downloaded by other clients, which means if you have that's bad.
That's a sharing feature.
It's for sharing. Yeah, it's for sharing. Really, it's for partner relationship management essentially, but. Microsoft was not very, clear on exactly what the issue was, but they said that there were very specific circumstances where it could occur, and it was a configuration error, and that the issue was resolved 10 hours after it was discovered, except they didn't specify how long the issue actually existed. So once they discovered it, it took 10 hours to fix. They weren't sure how long it actually was out there as an issue.
So there could be a leak in the pipe. It took me 10 hours to fix it once I found it, but it could have been leaking for 10 years.
Right. So the offline address book is essentially a copy of the enterprise addresses that users can access when they're disconnected from BPOS. So personal contacts, emails, documents, and other items in Outlook were not affected. It was really just the offline address book. And the problem occurred within data centers in North America, Europe, and Asia. So it was sort of in their data centers, there was a configuration issue with the Exchange product.
So this has two sides to it, which is, yes, we like to pick on Microsoft. And I was thinking as I asked you, and then I was thinking as you were talking, what is it that I have against Microsoft at this point? I think there's a company that doesn't innovate very well. I think it's a company that loves to, build out its cash cow and just keep going with it, renames things for no sake, and hasn't had a new idea in a long, long time. And they were compared to Apple, which I'm a big fanboy of. But this is a double-edged sword for us cloud computing people,
That's
which
right.
is that
this is a real risk.
this shows, this is for the IT security people who say, this is why I don't use the cloud, kids, because this stuff happens. Now we go, hey, no, that's Microsoft. They don't know what they're doing in the cloud. I mean, they have all these commercials and go to the cloud that just annoy the heck out of us when we're watching football on Sunday, but they don't really know what they're doing. But IT people go, well, if Microsoft can't do it, then what's to say that Google and Salesforce can do it, or Rackspace and Amazon can do it any better, right? Microsoft's really good. They know about security. This is not the first time they've had this issue. There was a T-Mobile one. Remember the T-Mobile address book thing? That was
That's
a Microsoft
correct. That was a Microsoft-related issue.
And it was address book, too. It was like the address book wouldn't
Very odd. They have don't use Microsoft for address books if you're going to the cloud. That's my advice.
Or just say, where's my address book? To the cloud.
To the cloud. It's in the cloud.
It's in the cloud. So a little beat up on Microsoft.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real issue. It's a real security issue that gets brought up from time to time with cloud computing, and fortunately they were able to resolve the issue within the 8-hour time frame of which when they discovered it. And apparently they sent letters out to customers who they identified as having dealt with the issue and said, please delete like whatever you download or whatever, whether they did it or not, whatever, they sent the letter.
Oh, that's the worst.
That is really bad.
I've had to be on a team that sort of had to draft those letters, and that's not a fun letter to draft.
Bad letter. But it does bring to bear some of the risks that do occur when moving to the cloud, and it does bring to highlights the fact that you do need to do full security checks on products that you're going to be using. Yep. Specifically when you're moving an enterprise level application like communication services to the cloud.
And always realizing too that don't compare just it's not cloud versus the cloud is unsafe. Also realize that most security leaks of all these sorts are done not in the cloud. They're done through the groundware. So
right, this was a configuration issue that some person.
No, I mean that most security leaks and problems are not cloud related at this point, right? The percentage of security leaks that come from cloud computing companies at this point is minuscule. The percentage of security related problems that happen in enterprises. We've been a part of those. We know what happens. I've worked on websites at brokerage houses that you could log in as any user. A bug in the system that existed for years, that you could log in as any user to see their brokerage account by just putting in a parameter in the URL. It existed for years. So that wasn't cloud computing. That was a website. And yeah, we fixed it, but this stuff happens. I think it happened. The problem is it doesn't hit the newswire because it doesn't affect more than one person. And that one person, when they have the problem, they usually are very quiet about it, right? They don't say it. There are all sorts of government regulations about when you expose client data, you now have to make these massive announcements. And again, I've been involved in those things where, and California I think is actually the most stringent on that. When you lose client data, I think in most states you have to tell the clients or do something. In California you have to make like a big public announcement about it. Anyway, so that wraps up our agenda. Now let's go on to our CloudFocus app pick of the week, the last pick of the week for the 2010 year. Again, our 25th episode, so that's actually a big milestone for us. Congratulations to us.
It's a big one.
On this pace of roughly one a week, we'll be somewhere in the 70s or 80s by the end of next year, which is a lot of podcasts.
Lots.
So hope you're enjoying it. Wishing everybody a happy new year. But let's get to our CloudFocus app pick of the week.
All right, you get the phone, and I'll get to the picks. So my pick of the week is a App Exchange product that you can install into your Salesforce. It is called GridBuddy.
GridBuddy. Is it made by the Force.com Labs people?
No, it's not. Oh. It's made by AppBuddy.
AppBuddy.
I caught wind of this before Dreamforce.
Okay.
And have played around with looking at demos, looking at screenshots of it. I haven't used it personally, but it looks like an extremely powerful tool. Mm-hmm. What it allows you to do at a very high level is look at data across multiple tables or objects within Salesforce. So you can look at an account, with all of its opportunities and all of its cases and edit data within all of those records on one screen.
So kind of like enhanced lists with inline editing, but for across objects.
Across the whole spectrum of objects, right.
And you can pick any objects you want at that point?
You create these grids within a setup, and it sort of creates a different look and feel for the screen, and it looks very grid-like, that you can then mass edit objects across the relationship. So you don't have to use like a data loader or something or anything like that to get to, it's very good for adoption. You don't have to jump to another screen to edit something to then jump back when you're really just looking at the parent record. It's very, very Excel-like interface for viewing and editing records.
Right.
I think people will look at it and feel pretty comfortable with it. Pricing, I know you're going to ask, $5 per user per month. Only allocated to those users who are licensed to use GridBuddy, so not $5 per user per month for everyone in the org, just those who you want to be able to use the product.
That's a good, when I was waiting for the price because, the prices on these things vary. We've seen people do org-wide licenses, we've seen them do $5. It seems in that range of like, that seems pretty useful.
For adoption purposes, you can look at this and you can see, if you looked at some of the screenshots and got a demo, you'd be like, oh, okay, I get that. That looks pretty easy. There's a 14-day free trial. You can install it and try it for 14 days. They also have discounts for nonprofits and NGOs. So
have we rolled this out to any customers, or is this just net new?
Nope, this is net new, but it's something that I have in the arsenal for if anybody were to say, oh, I want to be able to do this. Okay, well, here's a product in the App Exchange that handles that functionality.
Nice, very nice.
Pretty cool.
Very cool. So it's been 35 minutes, and I've made my pick.
That's good.
I was going to use something that would have been unfair because you brought it to my attention, so I'm going to leave it for you.
Oh, thank you.
Because then you can use it at another time and talk about it.
Maybe I'll use it next week.
Next week will be a good time. That'll be in 2011, your first pick. But I'm going to pick something else that came up, got released last week or the week before, and I think is a challenger in the space. It's something that I've been doing a ton of lately, which is I've moved almost all of my reading from books onto the iPad and iPhone, and there are a bunch of different apps that do that. There's iBooks, which it comes with the iPad and iPhone, and has some great features. One of my favorites is that you can take a PDF on your documents and just drag it onto iTunes, and it'll show up in your when it syncs. It'll sync over. It syncs location back and forth. Great stuff. Then there's obviously Amazon Kindle, which I know a ton of people use. Again, syncing books. You can send samples. I do that all the time. I go to Amazon. I see a book I want. I just, instead of marking or bookmarking or doing anything, I just go send sample to iPad, and then I'm done, because I know it's sitting there and I'll be reminded when I'm in which books I want to read or buy. So then, but who comes into the marketplace other than the big boys in Google? So Google released a e-reader for books with a store, which is a web page store, and has a lot of the similar features. It does chapters. It does all the books you have. It syncs it across your account. So you have so if you buy them on your one Google account, then you can have the book reader. It's on Android. It's on iPhone. It's on iPad. It looks great. It actually has one feature that the other ones don't have. I mean, again, it's sort of, they're all kind of closed. You can change the font. You can change whatever. The one feature I like is that, unlike a normal book, when you're reading it, the book's pages don't change, right? Because a book page is a page, and you can't expand and contract that page by changing the font. But in an ebook, when you change the location of the iPad or read it on a different device, the page itself isn't really a page at that point. It's just a bunch of text. So it's very hard to tell like where you are.
That's true. Because I was looking, my mother reads books on the iPad exclusively now, and I noticed
everyone in my family has an iPad.
I noticed that yes, my mother does have an iPad. I noticed that I made the comment like, you're blind. Like the font was so big. She had like a paragraph on a page. Right. The book was like 1,000 pages. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh.
And so but you don't know where you are, because it kind of I'm just trying to think in the different applications which one it does. the Kindle one says they both do this. They say your number, and it's usually like 352 of 2059.7. Now, if you change, you go to your iPhone, the numbers change. So now I'm on.
You're on a different form factor.
I'm on 220 of 6,025. So it kind of gives you this whole sense of like, where am I in this book? And it doesn't give you a sense of where you are in the chapter. The Google Reader actually tells you you are X away from the end of this chapter. So then, when you're looking at it on your pages, you go, "Oh, I'm in chapter 5."
Can't they just give you a percentage? Like, you're 28% done with this book.
They do that, but that's not useful. Because you want to know where you kind of are in the chapters, because you think of books as chapters and what chapter I'm in.
What are these books you speak of?
These books?
I don't read these books.
Ebooks. These books are... So anyway, it's Google ebook readers available for the iPhone, iPad, and Android. They obviously have an online thing. They have, I think, 2 million books in there. They have a lot of free, publicly available books. And that's the nice thing about most of these is that even the iBook store, there's a huge free library. So don't think you have to buy stuff. I mean, there's classic stuff that's just out there. Moby Dick.
The Art of War.
The Art of War. Alice in Wonderland. Like, there's just tons of books that you can go and download. Winnie the Pooh. And they're great. There's actually now, iBooks now supports illustrated books. So books for kids and things, you can buy the illustrated book and it'll handle all the pictures much better than it used to. So, again, most people, I think this is sort of the death of books, but that would be my prediction for 2012. But the Kindle is selling great. That's most best-selling product in Amazon history now is the Kindle. It overtook Harry Potter, I think, as the best-selling thing. So it's coming. Get on your ebook.
Good prediction on that as we move.
You're going to make a prediction?
Just quickly. Brick and mortar bookstores, like the Barnes and Nobles of the world.
The what?
The Barnes and Nobles of the world.
The what?
The Barnes and Nobles of the world.
Yes.
Will cease to exist soon. Not next year, maybe 10 years.
That's a great prediction.
Soon.
Maybe 10 years.
Well, think about how many there are. There's a lot of them. But,
I
the Barnes & Nobles...
2 years max.
I'm failing to think of the other big...
Borders.
Yeah. They will all just have apps on all these devices and just sell their books through them. And that'll be that.
And then I think there'll be a consolidation because...
Just give me a virtual library.
The one problem about ebooks right now is that I have 5 e-readers and I have to go to each reader to think where that book is. That's a problem. Someone will figure it out, but right now, it's kind of like each one has its own little thing. It's nice because I have it on one device, so I can have my entire device within 5 apps. But anyway, so that's my pick of the week. And as always, you want to follow us and find out more about what we're doing or our blog posts. We post once a week to the blog. It's blog.arkusinc.com. You can subscribe by RSS, which is really simple syndication. Great for using an e-reader. If you want to follow the company, it's at arkusinc.com, ARKUSINC. I'm at Jason M. Atwood, Jason M. Atwood, which is spelled out such. And Justin's at Just Edelstein. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/ArkusInc. And the best way to keep up with this podcast, as always, for the next year for 2011 is go get iTunes and subscribe to the podcast in iTunes. Leave us a great review there. We really appreciate it. You'll get the podcast whenever we push it out. Again, we sometimes do it off days, so you don't know, or we do a couple like we did in Dreamforce. So for 2011, we will definitely be doing more. Again, Happy New Year from us, and happy clouding until we see you next time on CloudFocus Weekly.